Welcome to another edition of Breaking News brought to you by Source Selection Soundbites. Today we will discuss the case of Accenture Federal Services, or AFS, decided at the GAO. In this acquisition, the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, had a requirement for issuance of a single task order for human capital support services for the full lifecycle of a TSA employee support, including recruitment, onboarding, development, retention, and separation. In addition to the evaluation factors, the agency also required offerers to identify any potential OCIs and submit an OCI mitigation plan if applicable. After all of the smoke cleared, Deloitte was chosen as the apparent successful offerer. AFS protested the decision. They asserted that the agency failed to consider the unequal access to information OCI and the impaired objectivity OCI. The agency took corrective action, conducted an additional OCI review, and determined that there were no conflicts of interest. The contracting officer acknowledged that Deloitte can make recommendations for technology changes, which would be implemented by Deloitte under an affected contract, but concluded that Deloitte's objectivity in making such recommendations would not be impaired because TSA will review the recommendations and make decisions regarding whether or not to adopt the changes proposed by the vendor. Thereafter, Deloitte was again selected for award and AFS was notified of that decision. Upon learning of the agency's decision, AFS protested the agency's decision again. After a consultation with the GAO, it seemed that things were going south for the agency, so the HCA executed an OCI waiver shortly thereafter. Then, AFS filed another protest, challenging the validity of the OCI waiver. According to the protester, the waiver does not discuss the substance of AFS's allegations or the extent of the conflicts. Therefore, it is invalid. However, the waiver did list each of the OCI allegations raised in Accenture's initial protest, its first supplemental protest, and its second supplemental protest, thereby identifying each of Accenture's multiple assertions regarding the alleged existence of current or potential OCIs. Even though the waiver does not address each one of them in a great level of detail, they were identified by the document. En route to finding against the protester, GAO noted that it will review an agency's execution of an OCI waiver, but the review is limited to consideration of whether the waiver complies with the requirements of FAR 9.503. That is, whether it is in writing, sets forth the extent of the conflict, and is approved by the appropriate individual within the agency. On the record before them, the GAO concluded that the waiver complied with the requirements of FAR 9.503, including the requirement to set forth the extent of the potential conflicts. The GAO stated that even though a waiver was required to address the substance of a protester's allegations, an agency need not concede that a protester's allegations are correct as a condition to executing a valid waiver. In light of the HCA's execution of a valid OCI waiver, the GAO found no basis to sustain Accenture's protest with regard to the alleged OCIs. Now let's address a few of the lessons learned from this protest. They include: 1. The agency may execute a waiver even when it's about to lose a protest. 2. The extent of the conflict requirement means listing the protester's accusations, but it does not mean conceding that the protester's allegations are correct. And 3. The waiver only needs to comply with FAR 9.503 requirements to be valid. In this episode of Source Selection Soundbites, we discuss the AFS case, OCI waiver rules, and the breadth of government discretion when managing OCI. This concludes today's Source Selection Soundbite. If this video was helpful, hit the like and subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any new material. If you want more details on the subject, they are available on the Source Selection Answer app. It contains lectures, quizzes, court cases, sample documents, and more material that allows practitioners to quickly obtain actionable knowledge. Thanks for watching. See you next time.